Nearly 1,200 national security prisoners across Israeli jails are holding an indefinite hunger strike with the potential to create some major shifts in the West Bank. We'll get into why, but first off, a bit of their demands. 13 of them in total. They include public phones inside cell blocks, more family visits for longer periods of time, better medical care, better treatment during transportation, an end to solitary confinement, and to Israeli administrative detention. In response to the strikes, Israel's prison service told us this. Hunger strikes in prison endanger the health and life of prisoners in custody of the state, who is in charge of their well-being. Organized strikes even more so. The Israel Prison Service has started taking disciplinary measures towards the prisoners and transferring them into separate cell blocks. As a rule, IPS does not negotiate with prisoners. So on the surface, it's a confrontation between the prisoners and Israel. But take it one step further, and it's also about the future leadership of the West Bank. The strike is being led by one high-profile figure, Marwan Barghouti. He's the highest-ranking Fatah prisoner in Israel, behind bars for terror attacks that killed 5 Israeli civilians. Our senior defense correspondent Shai Ben-ari reporting on this story in Ramallah today with a reaction from the head of the Palestinian Prisoners Association.
Yes, there is a lot of support for this hunger strike in the Palestinian community. We've been speaking to civilians here who have told us as much, and we also know that preparations are being made by the Israeli authorities to counter this strike. We know that they've been separating the hunger strikers themselves from their fellow prisoners, moving them to different sections of prisons or to different prisons altogether. We know that there have been confiscations of electronic devices, other sanctions as well. We know that they're setting up a field hospital in southern Israel, close to the Egyptian border, in fact, where preparations are being made for possible force feedings. If it comes to that, that is something the Israeli authorities would like to avoid, but it is certainly an option. We also know that the leader of this hunger strike, Marwan Barghouti, has been moved to a prison in northern Israel and has been placed in solitary confinement. Indeed, there's been some speculation that this hunger strike may have more to do with Mr. Barghouti's own political ambitions than anything else. He indeed put out an article in the New York Times yesterday writing about this hunger strike that caused quite a bit of furor in Israel. We also had a chance to speak today with Issa Qaraqe, who is the Palestinian minister in charge of prisoner affairs. Let's hear what he had to say.
This strike is aimed at improving the conditions of human life and living conditions for prisoners. It's a humanitarian strike aimed at allowing families of prisoners to visit. There's an ongoing security ban on hundreds of families visiting prisoners. All the factions and organizations in the prisons participating in the strike, from Fatah, Hamas, the Popular Front, Islamic Jihad, and the Democratic Front, there is participation of all in this strike.
We also asked the minister for his thoughts on any possible connection to Mr. Barghouti's political ambitions.
There are no political ambitions for Marwan Barghouti in this strike because Marwan Barghouti is a political leader. He's an elected leader of the Legislative Council, and therefore he has his role as a leader. Demands were made clear to the prison administration, as I mentioned earlier. Clearly, if the prison administration came and negotiated these demands and achieved at least the basic issues of these demands, we wouldn't have done this strike. And Marwan said we prefer not to do the strike, but the prison administration did not respond to these demands.
In any case, it's still very early days for this hunger strike, and it will be many weeks before we actually know just how far the hardliners are willing to take it. For I-24 News, Shai Ben-ari, Ramallah.